What is up? 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 What is up, Grocknation? Welcome back to this week's recap/review of True Detective Night Country. Today we are looking at episode 5, which was released last night. I actually watched this episode last night before going to sleep, and I debated after that shocking ending to just not go to sleep and get up and do it then. But I was like, most of my viewers start watching my videos about 6 in the morning, so this is about the proper time to do it. So we are going to be digging right into last night's episode, though, guys. But before we do, once again, if you're new to the channel, give the subscribe button a smash. Turn those notifications on if you enjoy this content and other ASMR content as well. Give the video a like so other detectives can find it. Alright, guys, so we are going to dig right into tonight's episode. Like I said, it ended with a bang. It was a slow episode, I would say. One of the more slower episodes of the series so far, despite the fact that we do find out quite a bit of information that we were somewhat suspicious of, or we had an idea of beforehand. We got some confirmation tonight. So with that being said, let's dig right in. Okay, so tonight's episode takes place roughly 2 days after the events of last episode. As you guys recall, Navarro and Danvers were out at a oil dredge, where they thought they would locate Raymond Clark, based off of a picture of a gentleman hiding out there wearing Annie K's pink parka. Turns out it wasn't Annie Clark, it was this map cartographer. They got intel on Otis Heiss, who was actually hiding out there. Danvers as well had seen vision of her deceased sister, rather Navarro, sorry, and when Danvers finds her, it looks like her eardrums are ruptured. So this takes place about 2 days later, as it's December 31st, and I believe the events of that took place on Boxing Day. The episode opens with Navarro's sister getting cremated. While Navarro watches, she's allowed to watch, I guess she knows the lady there. And she takes the ashes straight from the incinerator, literally, into the urn, still hot. Danvers, however, is at the Lighthouse Mental Institution, is where she put Otis Heiss, where he was going through heroin withdrawals, which might be why he was acting a little wonky. When she found him, he was going through withdrawals. She questions him on Raymond Clark, to which he says he just got a hold of him recently to ask about how Otis had survived his injuries. As you recall, Otis had similar injuries to the Sol researchers. And he also kept saying that he woke her and that he's got to go back into hiding in the night country to hide from her. So he doesn't understand what this means or where that came from. Danvers then questions him on how he did survive his injuries. As you can recall, he had burned corneas, ruptured eardrums, and he'd done self-inflicted wounds, just like the Sol researchers. He tells her that it was 30 years ago, and that he was mapping out that cave, and that there was a cave-in, and some cave adventurers, explorers, map cartographers, I'm not sure what they were he was with, they got trapped in the ice. So they all went out for help, but there was a blizzard. And in that blizzard, he could hear screaming, like a woman screaming. And next thing you know, he woke up in a hospital with those injuries. He doesn't remember anything else. He gives Danvers the entrance to this cave on the map. And she tells him, okay, well, you're coming with me and Navarro, and you're taking us there. He tells her he can't go in this state. And she says, well, you'll be better in a few days when the withdrawals are done. He says, no, you can help me right now. Basically, give him heroin. And she says, no, we are not giving you heroin. I'm not getting you drugs. And he basically tells her to go fuck herself. So that's the information we get. We actually do get the map location, the entrance to that cave. So Navarro picks up Danvers and they head out to this cave, which I should also say is on Silver Sky Land, Silver Sky Mining Company. It's on their property. So when they show up, it's obviously been imploded, the entrance. Someone destroyed it with dynamite by the looks of it, and all crumbled in. So unfortunately for Navarro and Danvers, a dead end for now. But Danvers does have an idea that Otis can't get her there. He's a map cartographer. There's got to be other entrances. Elsewhere in the episode, while this is going on, Danvers and you a daughter, Leah, who, like we found out last episode, is taken up with those mining protesters. That protest group, the group that Annie K was a part of when she was murdered. Her and her girlfriend have joined up with them for a protest at the mine. And the protest gets violent with security guards and the protesters. Navarro, along with the other state troopers, gets called to go and calm things down with riot gear. When they approach, they get berated with, it looks like oil's getting thrown at them, and Navarro witnesses Leah getting physically assaulted from another trooper, and she steps in and fights the trooper, and a big fight ensues. Afterwards, she has Leah in the car not under arrest, but she's caught her, she took her out of there. Obviously, they all know each other. Navarro knows Danvers' daughter from the day she worked with Danvers. And she wants to know if she can take her home. Danvers tells her, no, you bring her in. She's going to come in. She's going to go to the cell. Just like everybody else, she has to learn. And, so yeah, she's going. Navarro starts to take her to the station. She's going to get bugged. So while all this is going on, simultaneously, one of the more stupid storylines of Night Country so far, in my opinion, that's very frustrating, is Peter Pryor and his wife Kayla. This whole season, she's been giving him a hard time for being extra busy with this murder case. You gotta remember that Ennis, Alaska's a small town, and before this murder case, probably a very boring town to be a police officer. She's fed up with him working late nights on this case, this potential homicide case, multiple homicide case, and she's giving him the cold shoulder and constantly giving him a hard time. It's like he's a cop. What do you want him to do? Just not work the case? But she ends up packing his bag for him and kicking him out of the house, which I'm just shaking my head at home going, oh my goodness, it's just so stupid, it's so silly. It's not like this is a big metropolis and Pete Pryor is constantly doing cases like this where, he has to work late hours and, miss events at home, it's so stupid. But, so he gets kicked out and he has to go, stay with his dad, Hank, who plays an actual really nice guitar song, acoustic guitar song while all this event at the mine is happening with the protesters and the troopers. So back at the station, Danvers, gets information from Pete Pryor that Pete did some digging and found out who was funding to the Sol station, research station. And basically it ties back to the Tuttle Group. Like I said, the Tuttle Group from season 1 of True Detective, the ministry, the group that was behind all those occult murders. They're basically funding this research company through Silver Sky Mining. Silver Sky Mining is directly funding this research group, which is in direct conflict of interest on the Sol Research Group gives out toxicity reports from the mine. So if you're getting funded by them, you're not going to release that there's any toxogens or anything like that that's going to harm the town. And obviously there's black water in the town. The town's getting poisoned. We find out there's been 9 stillbirths in the last 3-4 months. So obviously there's something, the mine's poisoning this town. And this whole research was funded by it is saying it isn't. So she has these papers in hand. She knows there's something going on now. There's kind of a conspiracy going on for sure. They're tied in with the Sol station, so this is going to be very interesting. Leah gets booked. She gets booked at the station. Put in a cell, I guess. Her and Pete share some stupid heart-to-heart, where she tells Pete that his girlfriend Kayla still cares for him. She's been crying all night over him getting kicked out, and that she fell in love with him. And as Pete was a high school hockey player, she watched a game where Pete lost. He allowed a kid to score by pretending to fall and win the game on the other team. And she found out afterwards he did that because that kid's dad just had a stroke recently. So Pete, being Pete, the good guy that he is, wanted this kid to feel good, after something so terrible happened in his life, because he's a good man. And I don't know how this Kayla, I guess it's because the relationship with Kayla and Leah, Danvers' daughter, I believe it's because Pete grew up around Danvers, because of her partner Hank. I guess we find out from other episodes he used to babysit Leah when she was younger. And Leah, who doesn't have family, obviously, because her dad had passed away, really likes Kayla's family because she learns traditional stuff from Kayla and her grandmother. So I think that's why she's always, she's been living with them for the last week now. It seems like because it was Christmas Eve, she actually left Danvers on Christmas Eve to go stay with them. So yeah, they got this kind of tight-knit bond going on. In the meantime, Danvers gets a call from Officer Connolly, or Captain Connolly, this Anchorage, Alaska fuckbuddy of hers. And he tells her that Kate Kittredge, the big head of the Silver Sky Mining, wants to have a meeting with her and Connolly at the office, the Silver Sky office. Danvers assumes it's over this incident with the protesters and the troopers, but he tells her, no, you better get your ass down here, we need to talk. So she takes the papers that shows they're in bed together, the Silver Sky Mining, thinking she's going to confront her on it. When they get there, they both basically tell her case closed. The autopsy reports came back from the Sol researchers, and there was a freak weather event. I can't remember exactly what the name of it is. It's a freak like avalanche, and that's what killed them. Danvers doesn't buy it. She knows from the vet that did a rough forensic without doing actual forensics on it, that they didn't freeze. People that freeze don't appear like the Sol station workers do. And that this is tied into the Annie K case. She kind of lets them all know about this. Kittredge and Connolly tell her, no, this has nothing to do with this. The case is closed. Connolly tells her that's it for this case. She presents the paperwork, to which Kate Kittredge acts surprised. And she tells her that they give a lot of donations to a lot of charities as a mining company. But, Danvers tells her this is a conflict of interest for you guys' emissions and toxicology reports on, our toxins report on how this affects the town. And Kittredge tells her she'll look into it. They also show her camera footage of Danvers and Navarro showing up at the entrance to that cave that, as you know, was on the Silver Sky Mining property. She tells, Connolly and her that she was following up on a quest, following up on a case, the Annie K case. She figures that Annie K was murdered in those caves. So, Connolly tells her that's it, the case is cold, drop it, this is over. And Kittredge leaves them alone. Connolly tells her he knows the truth about William Wheeler, what had happened with William Wheeler. He knows the truth that they murdered him, and it was a cover-up, it wasn't a murder-suicide. William Wheeler, as you guys remember, is the gentleman that caused this rift between Navarro and Danvers. The case where they showed up 7 years prior. Actually, it was 3 years prior, he says. So we got a timeline now exactly when that murder happened. And he had murdered his girlfriend. And he looked like he was possessed, and he was whistling that song. Navarro, in one of her visions, had seen the murdered girlfriend standing over her body, pointing at her. And I guess this must have caused Navarro to shoot him. We don't know yet. We'll get those answers. That's what I'm assuming. So he tells her drop it, basically, or he's going to expose that. He's going to look into it. An indirect threat, for sure, is what he does. So this whole thing with, this whole season, this whole theme, with these Dassault researchers, the way they died under these mysterious circumstances, this is all very similar to the Dyatlov Pass. In fact, I would say it's 100% inspired by it. Even this avalanche theory was one of the theories they had for the Dyatlov Pass. Researchers actually covered this in one of my spooky stories, because it pretty much plays out exactly like this. It's a mystery that to this day has not been solved. They just have, rough ideas as to why. Same situation. They were bare naked in horrifying states of pain, it looks like, and they froze to death like that. Look into it if you haven't. The Dyatlov Pass incident, it's very easy to look up on. And that's what this looks like. This really is pulled inspiration from, and this incident kind of confirms that. In the meantime, Kate Kittredge meets with Hank Pryor. So this is something we all kind of suspected leading up to this. And she basically tells him, he handled the Annie K case, and that she knows Navarro's not going to let this, or Danvers is not going to let this go, this Annie K case. She's going to investigate those caves. And the only person that can get in those caves is Otis Heiss. So, because I should say Danvers had mentioned Otis Heiss was the person that gave her that intel on the cave in general, or to begin with, that's how she got there. So, Kittredge tells Hank Pryor he needs to take care of this Otis Heiss, to which, Hank tells her, he'd done his part with the Annie K, he got the money, they paid him. As well, he was supposed to be made chief of police, but, she tells him that was out of her hands. Connolly had promoted Danvers in that time, and that's why Danvers is chief. But if he does this job she wants with Otis Heiss, she'll make sure he becomes chief. Hank also tells her that he's no killer. He doesn't know if he can do this, so now if he was involved in the Annie K case, he couldn't have killed her because he wouldn't have said this. So, now we know for a fact that Silver Sky Mining is in cahoots with the department, or they were, when Hank Pryor was acting chief. I guess he was interim chief or something, because he wasn't actually chief, because he wouldn't have been seeking that out as a reward for this Annie K incident. So now I got confirmation on that. So meanwhile, Navarro is at the local laundromat, which we find out Kayla's grandma actually runs, because Kayla's filling in for the attendant there. And Danvers is doing laundry. She has another one of her visions where, there's hair in a woman's hair, and her clothes in the washing machine as she's pulling her clothes out, and kind of takes her back. She did have another vision at this point in this episode, I forgot to mention, at the protest at the mine. She's seen Annie K standing among the protesters. Obviously, it was a vision, because as soon as someone walked across, she disappeared. I'm not sure if it's a ghost or a vision. We'll find out what's happening here. Her boyfriend, Tovak, shows up with a friend. He sees her in there doing laundry, and he brings the stone Navarro and Peter Pryor found at Oliver Tagak's. Did I call her boyfriend Tagak? There's so many. These names are hard to keep track of, these Inuit names. Her bootlegger boyfriend brought his friend, and they brought the stone. The stone that, like I said, Navarro and Peter Pryor found at Oliver Tagak's fishing shack. The stone with the occult symbol on it. And he tells her that, his friend tells her that these stones are left over top of, ice, where ice can break, as a warning to people that, the night country, or, the ice can swallow you up if you're here, if you're ever around this area. So that's like a warning. That stone is like a warning that they leave for each other, which is very interesting. Because does that mean that the entrance to this cave, or these cave systems, is it at Oliver Tagak's place? Is that why it was found there? And maybe that's why Oliver DeGag's missing and all of his stuff is turned off and that stone is left there. I don't know. That's what I got from that. As well as I told you guys before, we find out that the so-called group worships stones with those markings on it in season 1 of True Detective, so that might have something to do with it as well. I'm not sure. So Navarro takes this information to the station, to where Danvers is packing up the Annie K case into the Sol Station case. And she tells her that the case is done. As Navarro tries to tell her this information on the stone, she says, no, the case is done. They know about the William Wheeler incident. She doesn't know how. Actually, she does know how. She has an idea, but so it's done. Navarro, tells her, okay, well then, if you truly are done with this Annie K burden is on you, on your back now. You carry it around because now you know for a fact some shit had gone down, and you're gonna let this, injustice or unjust murder go cold on your burden, not mine anymore. So she leaves her. At the same time, Hank and Peter are in the same station at the same time are having a conversation. And Hank recalls the story of when Peter was a child and they were ice fishing. And Peter had fallen through the ice. And Hank had run ahead and he chopped a hole in the ice to pull his son out. And then drove him to the hospital. And now he had to keep him awake the whole time while he was freezing to make sure he didn't go into, coma, hypothermic coma. I think this is a story that was significantly told us because this is going to happen to somebody later on in this episode, or this season. That's my theory on that. And then he saved him that way, so you kind of get this. There's always this broken, relationship between Hank and his son, or, I don't know, something happened, he cheated on his wife maybe, or they have a really, really odd relationship, and I think this is just one of those to show that they always were not like this, this awkwardness between the two of them, and that he really does care for his son. So Danvers, kind of calls out Pete, tells him, who did you tell about this William Wheeler? Because now, Captain Connolly knows. And he tells her he didn't tell anyone. He swears to God he didn't. And she tells him to grab his laptop. And they close the door because Hank's out in the hallway watching her. Hank's been following Danvers all around town at this point, I should say. Because him and Kate Kittredge, in order to find out where Otis Heiss is, because Danvers hasn't told anybody, they don't know where Otis Heiss is to locate for him to get him. Kittredge told him to follow her. And that eventually she will lead him right to him. So he's been following her around. She drove around and she went to a cemetery or a morgue where they keep bodies while they wait for the ground to thaw to bury. Because her daughter had told her she had, there was 9 stillbirths. She was only aware of the one as a result of this mine poisoning. And she went and found all the little caskets of all the little kids there. And, you can really see that she's really, really starting to get invested in this case. And, she wants the right thing to happen, which is this mine to answer for these crimes at the very least. So she gets Pete to get his laptop. And they shut their door so they can have a private conversation away from his dad. And she guesses his password right away, which is his kid's birthday. And she says, your dad, I always tell you, your dad may look stupid, but he's not stupid. So his dad got into Pete's laptop. And Pete had a case on Annie K in there. William Wheeler. I guess his diary. Something along that nature where Hank had found out, yes, okay, for sure, they murdered William Wheeler. And he passed that information on to Connolly. Obviously, this is why Connolly's using it as collateral. Or blackmail almost over Danvers Navarro. To get Danvers to back off this case. And finally, she sees and she knows Pete's been wondering, and she says, ask the questions, ask me what you want to ask me. Pete finally concedes and tells her that he looked at the case of William Wheeler. So Pete, looking into these files, had found pictures of the domestic abuse cases before the murder of this girlfriend getting beaten up from William Wheeler. And he found that all the photos were flipped to make it look like a left-handed person had been beating her. He did this by finding a yearbook picture of her and noticing a birthmark that's over her left eyelid, and that they'd flipped all the pictures and evidence, like flipped horizontally, and printed out the pictures and put them in the files like that to make it look like a left-handed person had been beating on her. As well, the autopsy picture of William Wheeler with the bullet hole. He has a bullet hole on his right temple. A left-handed man or a left-handed person wouldn't shoot themselves in the head with their right hand. You just wouldn't. You'd always use your main hand. She asked him bluntly, or he asked her bluntly, he already knows the answer by this point, if they had killed William Wheeler as a cover-up. Danvers doesn't give him a direct answer, but gives him an answer, nevertheless, by basically telling him he's a good detective. And she gives him a key to her shack, which doesn't make sense to me. We're going to talk about in a second, because he can't stay with his dad anymore after this betrayal. After his dad went into his laptop and then gave this intel to Connolly, which Connolly's now using over Navarro and Danvers to get them to back off this case. So he goes to stay in her shack, which is not heated. There's no wood stove, it looks like. You can see his breath. I'm like, it's a shack in Alaska. Wait a second, back up. This doesn't look like there's a bed in there or anything. Before he leaves, his dad tries to ask him what that was about, and he tells his dad to go fuck himself. Don't ever touch him again, kind of deal. His dad knows he got caught. He was snooping around. So, this whole case file that they're covering up on William Wheeler, there was a flood in those offices with those files, and it ruined a bunch of files. You found out in episode 1. Makes you wonder, did they make this flood happen, to get rid of these files? They had to move a bunch of boxes, and that's why Hank, now we know why Hank took the Annie K case file and kept him in his house with a bunch of other files, and he was reluctant to give up the file to Danvers, because obviously he's implemented. So now we kind of get that answer. But yeah, now you really see this cover-up that, Danvers and Navarro have done with this William Wheeler. Sloppy in my opinion as well, but up till now I guess no one's really looked into this. They just kind of accepted it for what it was. And also you really see Peter, he's really becoming a really good little detective. We've seen glimpses of it here and there, and I think, like I said, Danvers really sees it in him as well. I mentioned in episode 3 recap that I had to delete on YouTube, that this relationship with Danvers and Peter Pryor, it's a very motherly one on her end, and I think it's because, she'd lost that son. You've seen it in that episode, how soft she is with him, but she's firm still and hard. And she genuinely cares for him, Leah even mentions earlier when they're having that heart-to-heart in the cell, that she hurts those she cares for the most. Because I think this incident, losing her husband and her son, has really changed her, made her a hardened version of what she used to be, maybe. But yeah, so he goes to stay in her unheated shed, like Bubbles from Trailer Park Boys. All while this is happening, at the police station, Navarro is with Rose Cole again. Rose Cole's mother from season 1, as we know. They're out at the ice, digging a hole in the ice with a chisel, which is very interesting because it's the flashback. Looks like the same chisel Hank was using in a flashback, same style chisel. Hank was using to cut the ice to get Peter out when Peter was a boy to save him. Rose is, breaking open the ice so that Navarro can put her sister's ashes in there, because her sister always tried to walk out to the sea. She assumed she loved the sea, so she's dumping the ashes in there. And then Navarro has a vision, and once again she's in a desert, back in the war, and she slowly starts to walk out towards the ice until she's woken up by the ice cracking. And Rose instructs her to lay down on her stomach, which is what you're supposed to do in a cracking ice situation, and crawl towards her. After rescuing her, she tells her, "What were you thinking? You started to walk out towards the ice, and I was calling for you and you weren't responding." It's very interesting that Rose doesn't really ask her about the visions she's seeing, and Because Rose, as we know, has visions as well. So did her son, Rust, in Season 1 of True Detective. So, it's kind of odd that all these people from this little town in Alaska, not all of them, but most of them, they have odd visions here and there, including Russ Cole. Who obviously had visions in Season 1 of True Detective. And I don't think he's from Ennis, though. I think he was living with his parents in Anchorage, I believe. I can't recall. But yeah, she never ever, asks Navarro about things she sees or whatnot, and she clearly knows she sees things. So at this point, I should say, while this is happening, the reason why Danvers had gone back to the police station, and this is where she confronted Pete Pryor about his laptop. She went and grabbed the heroin because she couldn't take this burden. As Navarro told her, "Any case on your back now." She knows something's wrong after seeing all the dead children as well, the 9 dead infants. She really wants to do what's right. So she goes in evidence, she gets some heroin for Otis. Obviously, Hank follows her from the cop shop when she leaves. She picks up Otis and she takes him to her house. She gives him the heroin to go use in the bathroom, but first he's got to show her where's this entrance to this cave system, other than the main cave system. And he points at an entrance, she circles, and he goes to the bathroom. At this point, she gets a knock at the door, and she goes to see who it is, and it's Hank. And he says he's been instructed by Officer Connolly, Captain Connolly, to apprehend Otis Ice and bring him in for questioning. She tells him, "Well, how do you know that he's here? Have you been following me?" And he says, "Oh, he's here. I just wanted you to tell me where he is." He obviously knew he was there. He followed her. To which case she says, "No, I'm just going to call Connolly myself and see what's happening." And Hank grabs her gun that was sitting on a table and tells her, "Don't make this hard. Just give him over." Otis shows up around a corner and asks what the hell's going on. And Hank pulls a gun on him and tells him, "You're coming with me," kind of deal. Danvers says, "No, it's not too late, Hank. You can just walk out that door. We can forget about this. Whatever he has over you or whatever they have over you, we can fix this." She knows now, like, he's in cahoots. Hank tells her no, he's taking Otis. Otis tries to run and Hank shoots him in the back. And then he shoots him in the head from behind as he was laying on the ground to execute him. At which point, Peter comes around the corner and draws his gun. He's staying in his shack, as when he heard the gunshots. He pulls the gun on his dad and he asks what's happening. And his dad tells him, "You're going to have to help me hide this body. Help me." Basically he knows, help me commit a crime. Peter knows by now his dad's been compromised, and, his dad realizes at that moment, Hank, that, his son's not going to choose him over Danvers. And he admits and tells Danvers, "I need you to know something. I didn't kill Annie Kay. I just moved her body." And, Danvers and Pete Pryor both have a shocked look on their face. Now they know they have an admission of guilt. And he looks at Peter and he says, "Remember that blood is thicker than water always." And he pulls his gun up to Liz. And Peter shoots him to prevent Liz from getting killed. Shoots him in the head, kills his father. And he breaks down on the ground. My mouth was open the whole time. I couldn't believe it. What a shocking, shocking scene. He had to put his own father down. Navarro shows up because, Danvers had called her right before Hank showed up and said, "Come here, we're going to go to the cave system. I have Otis." Navarro shows up and tells, Hank, "Okay, we're going to have to hide this body." She tells Peter, that they're going to have to hide Hank's body and Otis's body and clean all this up. There's a blizzard happening in town right now that, has zero visibility and everything else. And Navarro tells her this blizzard's going to cover our tracks. We need to clean this up because otherwise they're going to know, it's going to be obvious what happened here. Danvers initially, tells her, "No, we can't do that." And until Peter tells her, breaks in and says, "No, we have to do this." To the shock of Danvers, because the man just killed his father. And he says, "No, you guys go to the cave system, and find out what happened. Go to the entrance, Otis cave, you guys, I'll clean all this up." Danvers tells him, she can't let him do that. That's his father. He's going to have to clean up. And he says, "No, just go. It's the right thing to do." go and like solve this case. So that's how this episode leaves. Navarro and Danvers are heading off to this entrance to this cave system while Pete is back at Danvers' place cleaning up this whole mess. So yeah, shocking ending. This episode was pretty slow, you know. I was almost going to give this episode 3 G-stars. But looking back on it now, you know, we unveiled quite a bit of the puzzle. And that shocking ending alone, it's not a 4 G-stars. I'm going to give it 3.5 again, like most of this season has been so far. So far, this series is trending towards a 3.5 to 4 G-stars, and as total on average. But yeah, that shocker at the end, you know, not too often do you get a shocking moment like that in television where you're just speechless, and that was one of them. I couldn't believe it. But let's get into some fan theories and everything else here, and some of my theories on this episode and what's been going on so far, before we conclude this video. Okay, so now that we know for sure that Silver Sky Mining is in cahoots with this Dassault station, as well that Annie K was murdered, and Hank Pryor had moved that body on behest of Silver Sky Mining, Kate Kittredge, or McKittredge. We have to come up with some ideas as to why. What would Annie K have found down in those caves that would have gotten her killed? And why wasn't she just left there? It sounds like those caves were abandoned, and they could have just imploded the entranceway like they had eventually done anyway and just left her body down there. But instead they moved it and made it look like a hate crime. I think there's a good chance that what she found in those caves is something the mind doesn't want anyone knowing about. Which to me sounds like, you know, some kind of toxic waste, or, you know, there's something so important down there that the mine doesn't want people to see, because then they'll have to halt mining. Maybe a cultural heritage site of some kind. Something to do with this Sedna, perhaps. I'm not entirely sure, but there's definitely something going on in those caves that Silver Sky does not want people going in there and seeing. Now, it's going to be interesting with Navarro and Danvers going down there. They're going to be in danger now because they're directly going to the place that got Annie killed. It could be anything like toxic waste. Some way as to how it's poisoning the city's water. Maybe there's a river system there that goes to the water, and that's where they're dumping like their tails. And it's causing, you know, all this, you know, poisoning to happen. I guess they couldn't leave her body down there in case people still explore down there. They would come across this body. But I think, why would the cave entrances be open beforehand? If that's they're hiding down there, they would have imploded it a long time ago. So I don't think that's it. I don't think maybe there's toxic storage or whatnot down there. I think it's something down there that they don't want people to know is down there, so they could just keep mining and destroy it. Is the likely possibility. As well, this water, man, it's black, or like a grayish color now off the taps. We've seen in the previous episodes. Was it undetectable before? And, you know, the people of this town have been consuming it, obviously, until it started to visibly look grayish. Is this why people are having visions in this town? Because they've been getting slowly poisoned, all of them. Is this what we're going to find out? Man, so much. Also, what kind of a terrible person is Kate McKittredge? She's obviously evil. You know, and it's no surprise this Tuttle Ministry group from Season 1 is behind all of this with, you know, the Silver Sky Mining and the Dassault Research Station. We find out from Peter's investigation that they own tons of businesses, video games, oils, tons of plants in Canada and the US. So it's a massive conglomerate now, it sounds like. Whereas in Season 1 it was just a group in Louisiana, a religious ministry group. But yeah, I don't know, that's my theory on what maybe we're going to find in this cave. It'll be pretty crazy if, you know, we come across this in the next episode. I think they're going to tease us one more time before we get a really good reveal. That's usually how True Detective goes. You don't get the good reveal until episode 8, 9. But we'll see. But yeah, guys, with that being said, that's going to be it for this video. hope you all enjoyed and hope you're enjoying this season. Again, if you guys have any theories or ideas, let me know down below. Let me know what you thought of the episode. And with that, everyone have a great day, great night, whatever it may be, and peace out.